Hello everyone, we are Geeks Not Nerds. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Ben.
And today we're going to talk about digital comics. I feel like this is a topic we've discussed before, but I thought it was a good time to revisit it. After all, like all technology, it's changing all the time. And so there's lots more things to discuss with it. I feel like we started talking about this when Day and Day started being a big thing. Day and Day has been around for a while now. Most everything that's on the shelves you can buy now in digital form the day it comes out. Usually for the same price you can buy it a physical copy. And anyway, Vince and I were talking on the phone about this earlier, and we thought this might be a good topic, so we're going to just talk digital in general. We'll talk about what we like and dislike about comics being offered digitally, about us reading them personally, and all that kind of stuff. So, Vince, why don't you start us off just anywhere within that field you want to go?
Well, I have a small philosophy on what I think digital comics ought to be used for. I feel like either they ought to be super cheap versions of the thing that they're trying to push, or they ought to be used for really publicizing something, giving you previews so that they don't have to spend more money to put that into the book itself, giving you like a little code for previews, or giving you maybe something that's a back issue from a current running series to try to get you to hop on current comics. So really, that's kind of what I think. Yeah, in a little nutshell.
Well, that's Vince's opinion. Now I'll talk for the next 15 minutes. No, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. Bye, Vince. All right. So, anyway, Vince, I feel like comics or digital comics are kind of used for both of those things already to a degree, and I feel like we certainly could be doing more previews and things with comics. But if you go on Comixology, every week there's a free comics section, and most of that's previews. I mean, and the previews that are printed physically, like the book of previews that people will sometimes buy. I think I might be wrong about this, but I think those are offered digitally for free. That you can actually go on and look at them. I may be wrong about that, but
I know that Comixology has some pretty early information, but I don't think the previews catalog is available yet. I think they're working on it.
Oh, really? Okay. I thought it was around, but I know that sometimes that every week there will be like a thing of some previews, at least for some books that you look at. I know New 52 was doing that a lot when it started. They may have stopped because I haven't looked at it in a while, but I know they used to do that. But I feel like it's great for both of those things, and I also feel like we're starting to see people who are reading comics that because of digital that wouldn't be reading it otherwise, and I think that's great. I think that there are a lot of people that don't care to own them because they just want to read and they're not collectors. I feel like some people would kind of go the other direction from you, where they'd be like, well, I think digital is for reading and physical is just for collecting. When I was growing up, I didn't read that much. I was much more of a collector, you know what I mean? And so I would have always wanted physical, because I love to collect. But some people just want the stories. And for those people, I feel like digital is fantastic, and I feel like it's really unfortunate that the books cost as much as they do in digital, and that you don't actually own them. And that's a huge problem for me.
Now, there's I've recommended the website before. There's a comic that comes out 3 times a week. It's called thegutters.com, and I think it's terrifically funny. It's all about current comics and what's going on. And they had this comic strip that I thought was very interesting about how the Comixology servers were crashed by some big release of a comic, and people couldn't get to the new stuff, and they couldn't get to the stuff that they'd already purchased. So in some ways, it's a lot like saying that you can only rent comics, and that's the point that the comic strip was trying to make. And granted, you're paying a bunch for it, but yeah, you're really only renting because it's not available when you need it,
and
or
actually,
when you want it.
That was almost just a footnote in that comic strip. What it was mostly about was the Japanese company that was selling anime comics that folded, and when they folded, everybody lost everything they purchased. Whew. That was the big thing about that comic, was, and the whole point it was making was, yeah, when you buy those, you're not actually buying comics, you're renting them. So just remember that if the servers ever go down, if they ever lose all their information, or if they ever decide, whatever company you're talking about, to stop offering the service, or if they fold, you're not going to you're not going to have your stuff anymore that you purchased. Here's the difference between buying something and renting something, and then what this is. Okay, you've got purchasing something which you own, either digitally or physically. If you own it and it's digital, it ought to be something you can back up on a hard drive. Then you own it, by definition. Or you physically go out and buy something and you have it. And then we do a recommends about it. If you're renting something, you must at some point return it. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what renting is, you know what I mean? If you borrow something, you didn't have to pay for it. If you rent something, you paid for it, and at some point you have to give it back. That's renting. This is neither of those things.
This is a lot like saying, I'm going to buy this, but I want you to hold on to it for me, and I'm going to come over to your place to look at this thing.
That's right. And I'm going to trust you to hang on to it, never lose it, and I'm going to pay you full price to do that for me. That doesn't make any kind of sense at all. Now, I say it doesn't make any kind of sense. It doesn't make any sense on the point of the consumer. Ergo, bizarre that so many people are doing it. And that's not to say that I've never bought a comic full price like that myself. I've had to at times to review things that I couldn't otherwise get my hands on and stuff like that. So I have done it reluctantly. I didn't want to. And usually if it's something I wanted, I'd have to go out and buy it again physically. So I paid for the thing twice at the same price. But when I say that it makes no sense, there is a logic to it. There's a reason that this is happening. And that, of course, is that, I think the biggest one is that we're at kind of this crossroads of digital versus print. If the digital comics are so much cheaper day and day than the physical comics, then you're really hurting comic book shops.
Right.
And I feel like Comixology and the big two in general are trying to help out the comic book shops by offering digital because people want it and because they can sell more copies that way, but also they don't want to see the comic shops fold. Now, the big question is, and this might seem obvious, but I don't really know the answer to it. I thought I did, but the trend has been different than I thought it would be. The big question is, when that happens, and I think it's inevitable down the road, I think it's inevitable, when day and day gets cheaper than buying the physical copy on that day, how will it affect the comic book stores?
Well, I mean, places that primarily, that's the thing, is that like back issues aren't not necessarily digital, and if I want to read all my back issues, I kind of got to go find them.
Yeah, but the back issues are not the bread and butter of comic book stores.
Oh,
That's not what keeps them open at all. Trust me, I used to work at one. We didn't sell a lot of back issues. That's not the bread and butter. It's the new stuff. So,
I feel like comic book stores would thus have to either shift their focus or fail. I feel like they would have to become an all-encompassing geek stores. Like comic book stores often dabble in things like magic cards. They dabble in things like whatever, D&D books, action
gaming,
figures,
tabletop stuff.
These things would have to become their bread and butter with comic books on the side, and that would pretty much just be left up to back issues when digital takes over.
Yeah, that's what I used to think. Yeah. And I still kind of think maybe you're right. Where I'm kind of back and forth on it is when I talk to comic book store guys, when I talk to the guy that runs the store I go to, Elite Comics, out here in Kansas City, what he and by the way, he and I have been talking about doing a podcast on this very topic, and at some point I'd like to sit down and interview him and get his take on this. But I thought it'd be fun for you and I to broach it first. But I do think that at some point we'll do that. Anyway, he and I had this conversation, and he says that digital has not affected his business at all so far. Now, the question, again, is will it when that stuff gets cheaper? He says no, or not very much. What Bill says is the people who buy physical copies buy them for collectability, and so digital's not going to affect them. Guys like you and I are not going to suddenly start buying digital just because it gets cheaper. Now, I might buy more books if digital got cheaper. I might purchase or rent, or whatever you call that, whatever that is. I might buy some digital copies of books that I don't care about collecting just to read them if they were cheap enough. Like if everything was $1, I might go to my comic shop during the week, spend $25, $30 or however much I'm spending to buy the books that I collect, and then I might drop another $5 just to read things that I'm interested to read but I don't really care to have, right? I might do that. But what he says is those people aren't going to be spending less just because they might buy a little bit in digital. They still have those things they collect that they must have. You still have variant cover collectors that have to have every variant cover of the thing that comes out. And so his bottom line, yeah, but there's enough of them.
Yeah, I believe you. That's ridiculous.
His bottom line is that. And so my counter answer to that is maybe right now. But are we breeding more people in the digital age that will collect like that? I'm not sure. I don't know if we're even breeding very many kids that are reading comic books.
Fair enough.
Now they might read them. That's the thing, is that they might grow up and read them digitally because they're available that way. But are they walking into comic book stores, and are they collectors? So, we as human beings generally love to collect things. But if you're just in it for reading and you don't want to take up a whole bunch of space with it. So I think he's right for the short term, but I don't know what it's going to look like 20, 30 years from now.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't know. I kind of feel like he has a point, but 20, 30 years from now is a great way to look, because you can't say that the guys that are buying it right now really care to have it. I mean, well, you can't say it. You can't say that 20 years from now those guys are still going to be buying comics, and you can't say 20 years from now anybody's going to care. I mean, I will still be buying comics. That's just me. But that's only if it's available. I mean, if suddenly it becomes ridiculously hard to get a hold of comics, I might just have to go digital.
Yeah, just so you can read it, just so you can get the stories.
Mm-hmm. And I'll admit I would read more.
Yeah.
Provided it was $1 an issue, I'd be like, wow, well, let's check out Evil Ernie. I don't know what that is, but let's do it.
Well, and that's the thing, is that I
do know what that is.
I don't want to come off Kiss Psycho Circus. I don't want to come off like this is a big doomsaying message from me about digital comics. I think that digital is offering some really great ways, not only for people to read comics that might not otherwise, not only for availability if, say, something sells out real fast. Like Batman and Robin 18 last week sold out real fast because it was the next issue after Damian Wayne died. And that was really huge, and my comic store didn't get it. And honestly, I forgot it came out that week. Otherwise, I would have bought it digital and reviewed it. But my point is, had I known about that, I could have still reviewed it. I could have still bought it and reviewed it. That's fantastic. I didn't have that option 2 years ago. So that kind of thing is really nice. If they got cheaper, and you already have this with some back issues, and you've also got things like the digital service that Marvel still offers, where you can read a whole bunch of old back issues, where they got like 10,000 comics or something you can read for a monthly fee or a yearly fee. I've done that before, and it's neat. There's a lot of full runs of things there, and it's nice that they offer that service. But what would be really nice if they got cheaper is that, like you said, it will let you try stuff you'd never think about spending $3-4 on. I would read so much more independent books.
Right. I would probably read more not independent books.
Yeah, you'd read more mainstream stuff.
Yeah. I'd be like, I'll give that a shot. That's the thing, is that what makes me go, let's check that out, is if it looks really weird and different and doesn't look like they took 10 minutes to write it. I mean,
yeah, sure.
It's got to look slick. So I don't know where I'm going on that one. Anyway.
So that's kind of right now where I'm coming down on it. I feel like it's changing the whole surface of the business, and it's impossible to know where exactly this is all going. But I don't feel like this whole business of spending the same amount of money for something that you don't physically own as you would if you were to buy the thing that you own, I don't think it's sustainable. I don't think you can. I don't think that can keep going. And I feel like that's good news for those of us that want to read more, because eventually the bottom has got to drop out on this, I think. Now I'm going to feel bad for the comic book stores if it hurts them and affects them really badly. Maybe this is an awful thing to say, Vince, but businesses change, you know what I mean? Businesses are cyclical, stuff changes, technology changes things, and it may be that there ends up not being a future for comic book stores. I hope that's not true. I really, really hope that's not true. I mean, I'll be the first person to say I love walking to a comic book store. I love spending time talking to folks in a comic book store. But for the consumer, for people that want to read 40, 50 books a month, and considering the big two want you to read that much, if those got cheaper, that can only be good for all of us. So at least those of us, consuming the product. So, I don't know. I'm so on the fence about how I feel about it. I used to be kind of anti-digital. I mean, I used to be like, I don't like reading digital. I don't like reading something on a screen. I don't feel that way as much anymore because I really like things like Comixology as Reader, where you can read it from, I don't know if you've done this, but like you read it panel to panel, and it really changes the experience, and it's really neat. It's more cinematic. So what they'll do is they've actually, I'd love to be the guy who gets paid to set this up. Somebody goes in for each issue and sets it up so that you're looking at certain parts of the panel in a dramatic way when it makes the most sense narratively. The example I like to go to is I can't remember what comic I was. Oh, I know what it was. It was Indestructible Hulk, and there's this panel where you see a character. I forget who it was. You see a character, and then you press the next button, and it pops out, and then you see Hulk behind that character about to smash her.
Oh,
that's really neat. It's a little bit more cinematic. If you were reading the book, you would just see the whole thing. It adds a totally different dimension to it, and I think that's really neat.
Do you feel like, I don't know if this is true, do you feel like we're moving towards something where they're trying to maybe make it to where you could make it digitally dramatized? Do you think that that's become important? Where at the inception of the comic book, before it's ever become printed or digital, the artist and writer are thinking about it in that vein.
I think digital first, absolutely, yeah. There's a lot of things that are coming out digital first where they've got to know that some people are going to be reading them that way. Now, so far, everything is still done in a straight-up regular panel layout where they can then go in and add that, where they decide how you're going to look at it dramatically like that. I mean, cinematically like that. But when they know it's gonna go digital first and it's not going to go print right away, I wonder if they don't think about that, and if that doesn't affect how they write the comic. I do feel like if you ever get into comics, there are some, there's not very many, but I do feel like when you get into comics where they only will do them that way and they never actually print them, absolutely. But so far, they haven't done any that I know of where you can only look at it through the Comixology Reader, where like the Comixology Reader, you can either look at it as a full page and scroll up and down and zoom in and stuff, or you can do it the panel to panel. You have the option. So if you have the option, you have to also think about it in the traditional format also. So anyway, I think it's absolutely fascinating. I think it's a lot of fun. This is such an interesting era for entertainment. It's such an interesting time that we're living in. To look at how the comic books are changing and the scope of that is changing. How we read them is different. The options that we, the consumer, have of the different ways we can look at them is different. Let us know what you think about digital comics, and if you read digital, what you think the future of comic books is going to be because of digital. We'd love to hear from you. So leave your comments, let us know, and also if there's something you'd like us to talk about in a future video, leave that in the comments as well. Thanks as always for watching. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince, reminding you to support your local comic book retailer?
Comic book store.
Comic book store?
Support comic book stores.
Support your comic books.
I don't want comic stores to go away.
Reminding you to support your comic book store.
See you later. Bye. Vince, are you thinking what I'm thinking?
I think so, Cap. But how do you get clowns to shave their legs?
Well, I'm not sure, but what I was thinking is, I think our viewers should join the Geeks United Club.
The Geeks United Club? That's a terrific idea. When they join, they get lots of stuff.
Do they really? Can you jog my memory?
Stuff like this handy-dandy manila envelope in which we ship all your stuff.
That's pretty cool, but it's not the coolest part. They also get this DVD that has 2 full hours of their favorite Geekvolution content. They get to pick what videos go on here, and they also get a custom episode of Geeks Not Nerds just from us to them.
That's pretty cool. They also get a Geeks United membership card on which they can put their name and check as to whether or not they will be a Logan Tier or a Doomsayer.
I would check Logan Tier, but that would make me a fan of myself.
I think I'm gonna check Logan Tier because I like to be unpredictable.
Fair enough. They also get a random comic from the Comic Vault. Now, the Comic Vault is very vast and ominous, and that means that the chances of you getting this particular comic are not that great, but it could be anything. It might be this, but it might be all kinds of other comics, too.
We also have a much longer publication in the form of Captain Logan's novel, The Girl with Seven First Names. It is a comedic science fiction novel. Check it out.
They also get this letter from Doomsvent. I've read it. It's appalling.
He's hugely insulting. Oh, they get one more thing.
Oh, what's that, Vince?
They can request a rewind.
Or a Vince Versus.
Ooh.
Yeah, for us to review sometime during the next year or so. And you get all of that for $20, Vince.
$20? That's a lot of entertainment, folks.
Yeah, all you gotta do is go to wearegeeksnotnerds.com and click on the Geekvolution store, or you can just go to the link in the description of this video.
It's a great idea. We'll see you in your envelope.